Red Ray Gun Limited presents
The Benji and Nick Show. Hello.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Good evening.
Goodness.
Oh, I love doing that. Great fun.
Loch Ness.
What is it we're doing today, Nick? Is this the
Benji and Nick Show?
Oh, it is the Benji and Nick Show.
Yeah.
And what do we talk about in the Benji and Nick Show?
Well, funnily enough, you may know, listeners, that we talk about cult television. And, that's what it is, really. We just talk about our views on a particular programme that we spontaneously choose at the end of each podcast. We don't know what we're going to choose, but then we spend the week watching and thinking about it. And that's what we're going to do in this podcast. But we also deal with your emails, and we'll give you a reminder of a current competition we're running. And then at the end of the podcast, we'll choose next week's topic. But there's a brand new thing, as Benji might see, I've written in front of us. We're going to talk about briefly what we've been watching this week, because I thought, well, it's all about TV, isn't it? What have you been watching this week? What's wetting your whistle?
So, well, do you know what I've been watching? Obviously, I think we've both been watching The Bodyguard, which is fantastic. But if we're going down the
Can
avenue,
I just say it's called Bodyguard, not The
I always
Bodyguard.
thought it was. I thought it was The Bodyguard, but clearly
No, The Bodyguard's the movie.
Of course, silly me.
With
yes,
Whitney
it is.
Houston. And I...
Oh no! But in terms of old things I've been watching, I've been watching. Do you know, this is terribly embarrassing, but I'm just going to roll with it, Nick.
Go
I've been
for it.
watching classic Coronation Street from 1986. I've been watching it since the late 70s for a few years now.
Wow.
Just go through phases of in the evenings if I've got nothing better to do. I just like to kick back and watch a few of the old ones. Rovers has just caught fire. Bette Lynch was upstairs in the bedroom.
Oh yeah,
she was
I remember
saved
that.
by Kevin Webster, and for some reason Terry Duckworth was topless for some reason. Hilda Ogden is trying to stop
She wasn't
Sally
topless, was she?
from... No, she wasn't, no, thank goodness. She was trying to stop Sally and Kevin from courting with one another.
Is Stan still alive?
No, our Stanley. Stanley sadly passed away, I think, the year before, 1985, I think.
Right.
It's very sad. Yeah. We got... At the moment, it's all about Alan Bradley and Rita Fairclough going on there, you see. Yeah, it's all kicking off.
Oh, I feel that soporific effect that whenever I watch it. It's for those who don't know, it is a UK soap opera. It is the longest running UK soap opera.
Certainly is, yeah.
Set in a terraced cobbled street in Greater Manchester, Salford, I think. I don't know. Anyway, there you go. Not my cup of tea. But beloved by the nation, and Sir Ian McKellen loved it so much they gave him a part in it, didn't he?
He certainly did. Yeah, I don't watch it, and I don't watch the current one on the TV. I'm not. I like this mainly for.
Well, of course not, Benji. You only watch old television.
Exactly. I'm catching up. I'll in 20 years' time, I'll probably get round to it. In terms of the other things I've been watching as well.
Could I just interrupt you, because we haven't said what we're talking about? It'd probably be obvious, but it's Doctor Who's State of Decay we'll be discussing later. I forgot to mention that. Anyway, carry on, Benji.
I've been watching as well The Secret Army. That's the other thing I've been watching.
How's the theme tune go?
Oh, I can't remember, because every time I try to think of how the theme tune goes, I just keep thinking it's the one from Colditz.
Yeah.
But it's essentially the same thing. It's just with sweeping strings. But it doesn't really register with me, because usually when the titles are going on, I'm looking at my phone and doing something else and waiting for it to start, because all the titles are is just endless zooming in. It sort of just carries on forever.
It is like sort of like no, Colditz is not zooming in, is it?
Yeah, Colditz isn't zooming in, but this is just loads. It's just endless zooming in down these sort of roads in Belgium. Goes on for quite a while before the real action. But God, great program, but really depressing. My God. How about yourself, Nick? What have you been looking at this week?
Oh well, I've certainly been watching Bodyguard. There's also a fantastic thing that in the UK is part of BBC Three. BBC Three isn't really a channel, it's just part of the BBC iPlayer. They've tried to con us that it's a channel, but it's not a channel, it's just a themed bit of an iPlayer, a streaming service. And this thing called Killing Eve, which is tremendous. Phoebe Waller-Bridge is one of the executive producers on it, and has written quite a lot of it. It's an adaptation of some novels. Villiani, I can't remember the name of the character, and she's the main character, the assassin. She's just crazy. Yeah, honestly, get on the iPlayer and watch it. It is. I'll be watching the last episode tonight. I've discovered that there's going to be another series, so it's going to be an interesting.
It's clearly good then, isn't it? It's clearly
really stylish and funny and terrifying and tense and horrible, and yeah, it's great. It's Also, I started watching, what was it called? Black Earth Rising. I've been watching.
I've not heard of that.
Yeah, I started it one lunchtime and didn't have enough time to finish the first episode, but it's really good. But my bit of cult TV I've been watching, which I just absolutely love and have watched before, is Gideon's Way.
Oh, Gideon's Way, gosh,
on Talking
yes.
Pictures TV, yeah.
Oh, that whole channel's brilliant. You've got me hooked on it, but I've not seen Gideon's Way for a long, long time. And when I have, it's just been on like in the background.
Well, they started showing it a few months ago and then stopped.
Gideon lost his way.
It's a police procedural thing from the mid-1960s. I tweeted about it, and no one responded because I said the most bizarre thing. I'm just seeing if I can find my tweet about it. Probably can't. It's probably too old. That's the thing about Twitter. Everything disappears, doesn't it?
Does.
It was something about the certainty of it. It's so patrician and condescending, and all the coppers are as honest as the day is long and dedicated, and all the criminals are hapless and crazed. You know, they've all got fatal personality flaws. You know, they're either too greedy, or they're mad, or they're spontaneously violent. You know, there is no chance that the criminal classes will outwit Commander Gideon.
No normal people that are just criminals.
Oh, here we are. I say, I love this series. Outmoded patrician moralising has never been so entertaining. All criminals are crazed and hapless. All police total bricks. That's BRICKS. Also, fantastic shots of London streets in days gone by, and so many police boxes! 3 exclamation marks. There speaks a Doctor Who fan. Switch off brain, engage nostalgia mode, is what I said.
Oh, yes. I'll have to dig into that one, I think. And
it's got a fantastic theme tune by Edwin Astley as well. It's brilliant. It's fantastic.
Gideon's Way, you say?
Of course, I mean, when I say fantastic, it is rubbish.
But it's rubbishly
so
fantastic.
Old-fashioned, so outmoded, and so offensive. I mean, Talking Pictures have to put a warning up at every episode to warn that it's offensive. It's sexist. It's unintentionally racist. I think my son's just hovering outside the window here. What have you got there, Ben? What is it? Hold on. This could be interesting. Hello.
What are you doing?
I'm doing a podcast. He's closed the door. Are you off now? Are you going out?
No, I just got using something as well.
Okay. I'll see you later. He said, but la. He's got that off me. Anyway, so that's what I'm watching at the moment.
Oh, very good indeed. I like
good
what
stuff
a fun
about.
segment this is.
Mm.
I watched a Norman Wisdom on Talking Pictures, actually.
They show a lot of those. Mr.
Yeah.
Grimsdale!
Mr. Grimsdale! It was his last one he did with old Mr. Grimsdale. It was the one where he's a milkman.
Oh, it's in colour, that one, wasn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It wasn't his finest hour, I have to say.
And he becomes the fire chief at the end, doesn't he? He nicks the fire chief's uniform. Well, it's because he's asking the fire chief, who's been knocked out, whose head is leaning against the door of an elevator. He's saying, "You want me to take over?" And someone is pulling a rope, coincidentally, which is knocking the door up and down, which is making the guy's head nod. So he thinks he's saying, yes, you've got to take over running the fire brigade. And so he directs the fire brigade, and this turns out there's no fire at all.
It's so Norman, isn't it, as well, though? Like, Like, I think he was a vicar in it as well for some reason as a disguise. One? Yeah.
Oh, pretending to be a vicar.
Pretended to be a vicar, and he destroys a John Lee Measurer's golf game and all this sort of stuff. Good old Norman.
John Lee Measurers. It's John Le Measurer.
Oh, whatever. Too tired. It's Friday.
Who's the guy who played the $6 Million Man? Lee Majors. Lee Measurer.
John Lee Measurer.
Right, let's do the emails. Send your emails to podcast@nicholasbriggs.com. I'll read the first one from Anthony Zhetner. We never get your name right, Anthony, and you are a very, very faithful listener to The Big Finish and this podcast. I think you've won at least one competition. He sent his email on the 17th of the 9th month of this year at 14:31. What do you think?
Good time, afternoon, having a cake, watching a bit of telly, thinking to myself, yeah.
Nick, just wondering if there is a monster in Old or New Who which you have wanted to voice but haven't yet been able to. This isn't a question for this podcast, really. I would make a great DVD extra like Benji revoicing the David Graham Daleks. Aren't you going to do it?
I could do it. Did you hear that clip I sent on the to you and Jamie?
When?
I sent it to you both on the phone.
When?
Jamie replied. This was on Wednesday. I'll play it to you now. Here you go.
Why is my finger sandwich no longer near the river? Dr. Nick voice. No explanation. Where is it now? Not known.
No, I didn't. I did not get that.
Yeah, well, there you go. That was. Yeah, I think I sent it to you both.
Did Jamie respond to it?
Yeah, Jamie did. He said, rude thing. I can't believe that fingus has now become a thing, or should I say, has become a thingus.
We should explain this now. We're doing this without an explanation. We explained it in the Big Finish podcast, but not in this one. That Jamie Anderson was talking to me about having some finger sandwiches, and when he tried to say finger sandwich, he just kept saying fingus. So I sent him a Dalek message saying, in fact, I've got that here. That's it.
Would you like a fingus sandwich?
Yes, would you like a fingus sandwich? That's very good. That really sounded like it was from the Dalek Invasion of Earth.
I lifted the voices out of it, you see. So it was the backing of it was the river and all that. And I worked out that to do that one, what I did was it's very technical. Put the ring modulation on a bus, so it was actually not. So the main voice was clear, and the modulation was actually in the background a little bit, which gave it that slightly tacky, like we are voicing it literally here right now.
Yeah, the Dalek voices in the Dalek Invasion of Earth are not modulated enough, are they?
Not at all.
There's a little whisper of it. Yes.
Yeah,
anyway, Anthony's email was sent from the planet Ken Doll.
Well, aren't we all?
But I don't know any old or new. No, I'm quite happy with everything I've done, Anthony. I've not got a burning ambition to, but I do think that Benji should do some David Graham Daleks at every given opportunity.
Well, yes, I will.
Do you want to read this one from Alex Pass?
I'd absolutely be delighted to. Absolutely delighted to. Says here, -- original message, the same amount of dashes on the other side. Subject blank. Dates 2018-09-16 or 16-09-2018. The time was 20:35. We have got ourselves a late listener here. From Alex Pass. Another cracking podcast. I've only really ever seen the 1990s Tomorrow People episodes.
What?
I'd recommend checking out the Ramses Connection, where Christopher Lee played the villain. I tried watching the original series when the episodes were put out on DVD, but frankly just gave up and watched some classic Doctor Who instead. Fair play. As for State of Decay, every time I watch this story, part of me always wonders how much better this would have been as a Fourth Doctor and Leela adventure, as was originally intended back when the script was first submitted in 1977.
Yeah.
A sort of mashup of Face of Evil, Talons of Weng Chiang, and horror of Fang Rock with vampires. Just imagine, sent from Big Al, sent from my resting place beneath the tower.
Oh, it's a reference to the Stage of Decay there. Because of course, have you ever seen that Doctor Who documentary, Who's Doctor Who, that was part of the Lively Arts?
Yes.
Broadcast on BBC Two.
Yes.
Well, the fake discussion that they faked up to make it look like, with Robert Holmes and Terence Dicks discussing stuff. This was the story they were discussing.
Really?
The Stage of Decay, yeah. I think it was, yeah. Which was called The Wasting originally, but they weren't allowed to do it because the BBC were doing Dracula adaptation, I think it was. Interesting.
Is it very interesting?
Michael Parkinson and a cheese and pickle sandwich is the subject.
My kind of email, this one.
And this was sent at 32 minutes past 8 p.m. On the 16th of September by Jamie Ward Brown, writing to podcast@nicholasbriggs.com. Dear Benji and Nick, I thought I would just drop you a line to say thanks for the weekly dose of cult chat. Listening to your dulcet tones discuss all manner of TV gems from yesteryear brightens up my Monday morning commutes to and from work and broadens my knowledge of telly I may have missed or may want to miss. As a big fan of both Nigel Neal and John Carpenter, it was lovely to hear you both embark on one of your many delightful tangents to discuss the Halloween films, especially the underrated and often unappreciated Halloween finger sandwich. Finger sandwich. Season of the Witch in a recent episode. While I'd love to hear you discuss that movie at length, it made me think that perhaps the BBC's one-off Ghost Watch might make a good subject for a Halloween episode.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, but does it exist? Has it ever been released?
Well, Ghost Watch, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I never saw it at the time, funnily enough. I remember it really changed everything at the BBC because it upset so many people.
Oh, it was
people
brilliant.
thought it was a real live broadcast. I'm told by those that know that they must have been bonkers to think it was real and live, but there you go. I won't mention much more about it and the plot, not to mention the cheese and pickle sandwich. Oh, I see. There's something. That's what this is about. Just in case it does take your fancy, but it does have a very slight Nigel Neal feel to it and left quite an impression on a lot of viewers who tuned in to watch it live on Halloween night 1992. I shall include a link to the show's wiki page for your convenience. Once again, gentlemen, thanks for the show. All the best, Jamie Ward. There you go.
Interesting thing here, just tapping into that email, you can actually get the Stone Tape and Ghost Watch bundled together on one single DVD set called Two Classic Cult BBC Ghost Stories Haunted Double Feature. Just putting it out there. Yeah, apparently so.
Wow.
No, would definitely love to do a one on Ghost Watch. Absolutely fantastic stuff.
Wow. We may have found our thing.
We have to do it near Halloween. It's not Halloween yet, is it?
No, that's true. Yeah, we can't do that.
No, we can't do it until Halloween or Hallows Eve or whatever people like to call it.
Oh, hello there.
Hello there. Yes, the friendly version. It's that time, isn't it, Nick?
Yeah, it is. Well, I'm not going to phone Janie.
Oh, who's Janie?
Janie, or even Jamie, because I've just texted him, and he's in the middle of a meeting with an important person.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Well, Hold on, I've got an idea. Right here, you might appreciate this one. Hold on.
He's just phoning Jodie Whittaker.
Yeah, Jodie and me, we go way back. We're good friends. Here we go. Jibby jibby doo.
Jibby jibby doo. Jibby jibby doo. Do 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 do.
No, that's my voicemail. Hold on.
He's phoning his own voicemail. Well done.
It'll be worth it, I hope.
You say that. Well, I'm going to have some of the fresh water I've got. I decided to have some water earlier and discovered it was 2 days old.
Here we go. So I heard about this the other day and I'm very thrilled. Do you remember the speaking clock?
Yes.
Somebody set up their own speaking clock using old 1970s, 60s and 80s, or whatever it started, versions of it. So it's a vintage version of the speaking clock. Check this out.
At the third stroke, it will be 2, 55 and 30 seconds.
That's the one I remember.
There we go. See,
That's the next
one.
one.
At the third stroke,
Oh.
it will be 2, 55 and 40 seconds.
I think at the end it then says the something company presents the talking clock.
At the third stroke, it will be 2, 55 and 50 seconds.
Oh, it's all kicking off, isn't it?
At the third stroke, it will be 2, 56 precisely.
It's very exciting.
At the third
I'll
stroke,
give up.
it will be
Well, listen, since we're talking about nostalgia, I mentioned to you earlier that yesterday I was speaking to my 89-year-old mother, and it sounds like I've got another mother who's a different age. That's my only mother. She just happens to be 89 years old. And I decided for the first time, and I've been talking about it for years and years and years, to record her chatting about her life, because she lived through the Second World War. She was born in 1929, so was a young girl during that. And just because she represents a different era, her memories do. And I think now, just as a little aside, I'll just edit in a clip of some. I don't know which story I'll choose, but I'll choose one anyway. So here's my mum. With an anecdote from the past, possibly from something rather serious in the Second World War. Did you ever think, do you remember, whether you thought about dying?
No. I don't think about it too much now either.
But even with...
No,
going off.
it was strange. I never thought about us having a direct hit. And yet, two gardens away from us, they had a bomb in the garden, and it was in direct line with our air raid shelter. And the woman in that house, who was a miserable old lady, she wouldn't have her garden spoilt by having an air raid shelter there. And she ended up having one up for, not in the garden, the end of the garden, but up near the house. If she'd had her air raid shelter put in with line with everybody else in the road, she would have been a goner. But as it was, she was out of the blast zone up by the house. And she was a wicked old lady. Well, as I remember her, she was always talking about people and, not a very nice person at all. And I thought, well, that doesn't seem quite fair, does it?
Anyway, there she was.
Amazing, though, isn't it? It's so lovely to be able to track memories like that and share them with the world.
Because she was quite bemused about why I wanted to do it. And I said, well, aside from the fact that when you're gone, Mum, I shall miss you so much, because we talk a lot, I phone her more than once every week, quite often, nearly every day, but it just depends how busy I am. And still at my grand old age of nearly 57, you keep in touch. It's you think of things in terms of, what will I say to Mum about this? You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I'm just a big
totally...
old mummy's boy. Probably I am.
Oh.
Anyway, let's talk about Doctor Who, State of Decay.
Yeah, why not, eh? Why not? Well, it's been an interesting one, hasn't it, Nick? We've exchanged texts between each other on this particular story.
Unrepeatable texts.
Unrepeatable texts, yes, quite.
That's not quite.
I watched it again properly this morning, actually over breakfast, to keep it fresh in my mind. Yeah, it's interesting one. Lots of potential, I think, is what I would say, straight off the cuff. I mean,
what was it? 1980 Doctor Who.
1980 Doctor Who. Yes, I'll double check that to make sure, but I'm like 90% sure.
Tom Baker, Lalla Ward, Matthew Waterhouse. Tom Baker's final season. Tom has said many times, and certainly said to me several times, that he every year he would offer his resignation, and they would go, "Oh no, Tom." But Nathan Turner, the producer of his final series, accepted his resignation very, very quickly, because John had been around through quite a bit of Tom's reign as a production unit manager, and so had seen some of the more difficult behavioural traits that Tom had. Well, I would say allegedly displayed, but there's video evidence of it. So, everyone's seen Tom being impatient and tetchy and rude. And certainly actors have, told the tale. And, even though I've had a fantastic 7 years working with Tom, I really have, and we've had fantastic times, and it's been such a delight for me to be chummy with him. I wouldn't ever presume to say I was a friend, because I don't know, someone like Tom, I don't think you ever really know him. But we've had our times when he's been difficult, when he gets a bit bad-tempered, and it's not very nice to be on the receiving end of. And apparently I'm told that State of Decay was a particularly bad time in terms of what was going on behind the scenes. Let's just say no more than that. But I would say that Tom looks very ill in it. I think he looks healthier now at the age of 85 or whatever he is than he looked back then,
I think he's very pale, isn't he? And very, I always say, because I always...
drawn.
My kind of feelings with season 18, I think a lot of it was actually intended, but it's you feel sort of exhausted when watching it. It's a very tired sort of vibe about it. It's very, it's a lonely kind of... it's I mean, the thing about this story is it's got quite a slow pace from the off, straight away, I think.
It's a vampire story, isn't it? It's set on a planet that's got a sort of medieval feel to it, and the vampire lords who rule the place turn out to be aliens, of course.
Yeah, of course they do.
And it all happens in E-space.
E-space, yeah. I mean, I always think that the story, it's got such huge potential to be utterly brilliant, but for me, it was very slow and exhausting, and not a lot happens despite a lot happening. Do you know what I mean? Like that sort of thing. I mean, one bit that cracked me up straight away was when they do this thing where people offer themselves. Let's say they offer them. They don't have much of a choice really, but they suck the life force out of people, so to speak, and they he said, "Oh, make sure they're full of life." And then the specimens that are showed are the most exhausted looking, tired people with terrible pale skin and hair falling out, and they look like they're about to drop dead. And I thought, yeah, well, they've not got a lot of stuff to choose from, have they, really?
I thought you were going to say terrible dandruff
and mad teeth and bottoms like balloons. No, but it's I think there are lots of aspects of this particular era of Doctor Who which some people love and some people hate. I think it's fair to say. I mean, music for one thing. We both got interesting takes on this, haven't we?
Well, yeah. I mean, let me just say generally first that John Nathan Turner, working on Doctor Who, had sort of witnessed Doctor Who going in a way that he felt wasn't right, and he set himself the task of sort of reinventing it and restyling it. So he got the BBC Radiophonic Workshop in to do all the music and make it sound modern in an 80s sense and electronic, whereas Dudley Simpson, although using synthesizers, had mainly used woodwind instruments and drums and violins and things, and it sounded very old-fashioned, and he wanted to get away from that. I love Dudley Simpson stuff, but and this reinvention of it, and for the first time in years, I mean really first time ever, a completely new version of the theme tune, whereas before they'd always been sort of adaptations of the original Delia Derbyshire mix. They toyed with it, hadn't they, back in the early 70s, but sort of chickened out. And this time they went for it. And I must say that when I heard my first sort of audio glimpse of it in the trailer, where the BBC announcer said, "And Doctor Who takes you beyond human existence," or something like that, the human experience, and they had a shot of Tom Baker on the tacky-on screen from The Leisure Hive, which is the first story from this series. I remember thinking, was that a different version of the Doctor Who theme? Because the Peter Howell version does that woo woo thing, doesn't it? After
Yeah.
do, 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 you know.
Yeah.
And I thought, what? That was different, and I thought there's something weird going on here. And so I found it all massively exciting at the time. I was just going off to drama school, I was that age, just going off to college. And I sort of loved this new style. And for me, the thing that hit me at the time about State of Decay is that and I didn't have any sort of behind the scenes knowledge of this, but it seemed like a story from a previous series. Which indeed it was. To me, it was going back to something that I didn't like. And then, going back to your point you mentioned about music, the music's by Paddy Kingsland, and this is just my point of view, and I feel awful saying it because he's a very accomplished musician and has done many, many brilliant things in his career. But for me, Paddy Kingsland was my least favourite of the radiophonic Doctor Who composers, simply because I felt that his music was very low-key, and rather than augmenting the drama, it seemed to sort of pull it down to a very unexciting level. And that's why I would say to you why you're feeling that this is a bit of it's lacking in excitement, because everything's sort of it's all pootling around. And also I feel that his scores for Doctor Who are, with a few notable exceptions, like something like Mordrin Undead, which used sort of strange sort of electric guitar-y noises, the scores that Paddy Kingsland writes for Doctor Who are interchangeable. You can listen to bits from each score and you would not be able to tell the difference, whereas all the other composers do pretty individualistic things. Peter Howell had a very particular style, but I think you can listen to bits of his music from different stories and you can absolutely immediately tell which story they're from. I don't want anyone to put me to the test on that, but
no, I think you're right. I think Paddy's stuff is what it is, and in fact, to tell you what I was thinking when watching this, I was thinking that in the context of this story, it works in I think it actually works. I like some of his kind of, because it has almost sort of medieval-esque kind of vibes to it. It feels almost a little bit. But he uses
the same sound set, doesn't he? The same set of sounds for every story. That's
precisely. So when you move it onto something else, it's exactly the same, and you kind of so if that was the only something that was used on that particular story, I think, wow, that's really creative. But yeah, it is very similar on other things, and I don't dislike it. Because I quite like the sounds that he uses, but it's very repetitive. There's nothing particularly. Apart from maybe the end of Legopolis or something, nothing particularly stands out to me as crazy exciting about it.
Well, no, it's not got angles on it. It doesn't stop and start and change its tempo. It kind of poodles along. I feel, and I must be surely doing him a terrible disservice, but I feel like he didn't much like working on the series, and it feels to me like a job by someone who's got no passion for it. And I've certainly never heard him speak passionately about his Doctor Who music, whereas I've heard the other composers at some points speak with passion and interest, and I've never heard Paddy Kingsland say, oh no, the thing about Doctor Who, what I wanted to get across. I've never heard that from him, which doesn't surprise me, since that's what his music sounds like to me. His music sounds like he goes, right, okay, just do a bit of this.
Yeah.
But again, I'm really sorry if that's too insulting, and that, obviously I know that Paddy Kingsland's a regular listener and writes in every week, and I just refuse to read out his emails.
It's music's subjective, isn't it? It's like I absolutely love all the Carrie Blyton Doctor Who stuff, but I know that there's a whole community of people out there who absolutely hate it.
Yeah, they go, what's that?
They go, what? Can't believe they even did that. It's ridiculous. I love that. Yeah, so good. So good. So up my street. Up my Strasse. It's interesting. I mean, I'm just looking on the Doctor Who Wikia page for this story, and there's just something here which just made me laugh a little bit. Said here, cheese is unknown to the people of this planet, though cheese can clearly be seen amongst the food offered to the Doctor and Romana in the castle. It's like, oh yeah, we got this off. So that's not cheese. No, that's this other thing we got. It's a dairy-based.
Is that a big plot point that cheese is unknown?
No, I think it's just a thing like, passing, have you got any cheese? No. And then later on there's cheese on the table.
I bet it's a Tom Baker invention. I bet it was a line that Tom put in. That's just the kind of thing that he would say. I think it would be very funny if the people on this planet never heard of cheese.
They're sitting there eating it.
That's the sort of thing when I say to Tom, well, I suppose we'll do it. And he says, well, we'll record it now and you can cut it while my back's turned. And I go, yeah, okay, I'll do that then. And so we just cut it. Yeah, interesting. The other negative thing, sorry folks, I wanted to say, you can tell we're Doctor Who anoraks, we're going into far too much detail. What I wanted to say about this story is the director, Peter Moffat, who was beloved by the actors and the production team, and apparently was the loveliest man. But a lovely man does not a good director, mate. And I just... it was when I was just finding out who the directors were, and I suddenly found this through line that all the stories that I thought were really lamely done all had Peter Moffat's name on. And I thought, oh. And, and I heard that he always got people home early, always finished early. I thought, yeah, you probably did, didn't you? Because you did. There's too much. He doesn't cut enough. He doesn't cut in. He doesn't move in close to things. He uses lots of developing shots, lots of panning and tracking and stuff. All very well, but he never. It's like it's all been. They've all had a jolly nice time making it, and he hasn't challenged anyone. There's no passion. It's all. All his stories have got it. I remember my heart sinking when I discovered that he was going to be directing the Five Doctors. Oh no, and yeah, it all looks like sort of sports coverage a bit. It's all none of it's dynamic. I think it's very downs. It's all on a level.
Like the set stuff, like the stuff. Television Centre sort of recordings for this, it does feel, and it sounds as well, very sort of studio based, and has that dryness and that very I think you could have been a bit more, it could have been cleverly shot to make it feel a bit different, but it does feel very much like a set castle sort of place, really. I mean,
it's workmanlike. It's made in a very workmanlike way. He shoots everything from the same angle because he doesn't go into the set, and you're very aware of which wall is missing for the cameras to look in at. He doesn't create a good illusion of reality, really. There's no passion in it, as I say. There's no oomph. Whereas you've got someone like Graham Harper who went in and kind of rocked the boat a bit and did it in a different way, and those stories immediately leap out at you. Yeah. They seem, to be from a different era of Doctor Who, really. And that's another thing that's. I feel that he didn't do anything with the performances, so you're entirely reliant on what the actor turned up with. And luckily, there's some, the people who play the three who rule, they're giving it a good old Hammer horror deal, aren't they? I remember lots of my friends saying, "Oh, aren't they brilliant actors?" And I thought, I can't really tell because the drama isn't pulling me to them, because the music's dull and the camera work's dull, and I'm not really looking at the actors that much. But watching this first episode again, I actually found it far, far less worse than I remembered it being. That said, I still was pleased that I didn't have to go on and watch any more of it.
I mean, I love the vibe, you see. I love the vibe of this time in Doctor Who. I love the vibe of this story. Slightly gothic, quite dark. This story, very gothic, and it feels very bleak, and I kind of like that. I like that about it. I love all the the costume and the the sets in there. I think are quite fun. I love
all those things.
I think it's I think it's the execution that kind of lets it down.
Yeah. I love all those things, but I can't appreciate them because of the way it's made.
Yeah,
you know
totally
all those
with you.
Elements are fantastic. I love gothic stuff. I love, So
I mean,
you were going to say about the bats?
Well, I was going to say, actually, do you know? Okay, so maybe the bat props were a bit funky, but the actual effect of all the bats in the sky, I thought looked really good.
Do you mean rubbish?
Well, they look interesting.
When you say funky, yeah.
Funky, like... I'm
just clarifying, it's a generation gap difference. Funky sounds like a compliment, but you mean if they weren't very good.
I mean, they were good in their context, but perhaps, looking at it now, perhaps they're not quite as effective as they once were.
That's what funky means, is it?
It's funky. It's a bit out there, a bit But it's all the stuff for the bats in the sky.
Yeah,
I think
that's
looks
stock
awesome.
footage.
It's
That's
stock footage. Yeah, it is. But the way that
so
they
that's not. Of course, it looks awesome because Peter Moffat didn't shoot it.
oh, ouch! Shots fired. Ding
Well,
ding.
But seriously though, that's why that looks good, because those shots were the responsibility of some other director. Sorry, but it's true.
Oh,
They do use the standard stock BBC bat sound effect, don't they? That noise,
Oh,
which is
yeah,
about as
it's all-
threatening as a
Bat.
pussycat drinking milk. Yeah,
But it's just one of those, isn't it? Really,
I think
just
it's a
one
bit
of those.
much, isn't it, when the episode climax is a piece of stock footage. You know.
And just a load of bats as well. You know, it's
Yeah.
like, look, loads of bats.
Look, there are only 2 near us, but in this David Attenborough documentary, there are
There's
actually
hundreds.
loads.
So have you not
But they're
been
not
to a
threatening,
belfry?
Because they're not even shot in the same hemisphere as us.
It's very true. So you just want somebody to say, well, if you like them, you should go to local zoo. Christ, they got loads of them. They have hundreds of bats. There's bats as far as the eyes can see. And you ought to go to the church. There's bats in the belfry as well. I mean, they're everywhere. Bats for all occasions. But I love Tom's costume in it. I think it's wicked. I think it's really love all the sort of burgundy.
Yes, I remember at the time I loved the fact that they changed his costume a bit.
I think it looked really nice.
But Tom hated it. He didn't like that new costume.
Did he not?
No, he'd spoken to me about, he didn't like the fact that John Nathan Turner was starting to have a say about what his collars and things looked like. He just thought that was all a bit much.
Well, I think like the question mark collar thing is that really is a Marmite thing. Some people love the idea of question mark collars, and other people utterly think it's ridiculous. It's I don't know quite where I stand on it really. I think it is what it is, isn't it?
Well, you just said it was Marmite.
Well, it is, but equally, like I don't dislike it. Like some people hate it. I don't love it.
I think it's a bit stupid. It's a bit like when Barry Letts said he was stuck with who won on Bessie as Bessie's number plate, because it looks like a question. It's a difference between the show and the character.
Definitely.
So why would Doctor Who ? Go around with question marks on his collars? Well, because of course Stephen Moffat later reveals that his real name was Doctor Who, but he shortened it to Doctor.
Theta Sigma.
On the nose.
Theta Sigma.
I don't care what the Doctor's name is.
I don't want to know.
Adventures. Yeah.
I bet something just like Dale. Yeah, his name's. Oh, there is Dale Who, isn't there? Actually, what am I talking about? Yeah, there's a bloke called Dale Who. Yeah.
Dale K. Who? Dalek.
It could be. Maybe his name's just, I don't know, Tarquin. That'd be a good name, wouldn't it? Or you could just say the Doctor's Merlin, for all we know. You just never know. But yeah, so State of Decay, an interesting watch, I think. The story's pretty alright. I like it. But just execution, isn't it, really?
I think so. But for me, as a rabid Doctor Who fan, watching it again, it did regain a bit of ground. It did. So, and I did think there were some good performances in it. I like the guy who played the guard.
Yeah, great.
And the guy who played the the bloke in the village who has to select all the scummy people to go off and be drained.
Was it? You came round my house. You gave my father wine. Just slaps him round the face.
Yes.
But
but the elder of the village.
Yes,
I thought
he's
he
brilliant.
Was very good.
Good face.
I thought they were good. I mean, I think Peter Moffat had been in the business for many years and had contacts with many lovely actors, and he employed a darn good cast here. We haven't spoken about Matthew Waterhouse or John Leeson, K9 and Adric, who are having their own little adventure.
Yeah, inside
the
TARDIS with classic. What's that annoying ditty with whenever Adric appears? That music. I just get some. Not yet. I think that's later on. No, that's in his first story, in his last story, I think, or something. But no, this one decided to go. Yeah, it's irritating.
That sounds too lively.
But what they were doing was it he gets out the TARDIS by convincing K9. All that. Do you know what? It was so mundane what was going on there that I wasn't really paying much attention, to be honest.
I did notice that John Leeson's voice sounded very different to the way I remember it. I think that in those earlier stories, I don't know, it's not an earlier story though, is it? His voice seemed to be lower than it is now. I mean, John seems to do a much higher voice for K9 when he works with me.
He does that speaking like this up here, like that.
Whereas he sounded a bit more sort of, just like some bloke.
I think as well that the K9 voice effect, it changes frequently, doesn't it, throughout? Sometimes it's really modulated,
yes,
sometimes it's not modulated, sometimes it sounds like it's going through a speaker, other times it doesn't.
I know there's no consistency whatsoever with it, and I'm sure these are the important issues that people want to know about.
This is what makes us Doctor Who fans, is it not, though, that we're sitting here discussing that?
And I think that latterly, John Leeson, any actor wants their voice to be heard rather than it to be an effect, I think, And I think John Leeson convinced them that he could do the voice without it. So latterly, they just abandoned the effect. And I know that John has spoken to me because for Big Finish stuff, we put an effect on his voice to make it sound like the older stuff. And John has campaigned quite strongly to me, made representations to me to remove the effect from his voice. And the most I've managed is to say, well, I certainly will consider it, John.
We'll turn it down. And then up again. It's difficult, but it's subjective, isn't it? That's my word today, apparently. But it is. I think it's also different to other people, because there must be loads of people that say, I can't stand the effect on K9's voice, and others that are probably like, well, when K9's voice didn't have the effect, it ruined the illusion for me. I mean, for me, I kind of think he's a little robot dog. And bless him, his innards aren't too great, are they? He's pretty cobbled together throughout his time in Doctor Who. He's going to have a pretty voice, he's going to have an effect.
My gut feeling is he should have an effect on his voice, and that's certainly what I wanted when I was watching the show at the time as a teenager and then in my early 20s. I felt that it should have an effect because it was an electronic voice, and if it was just a voice, it just sounded like a man doing it. But that said, you come many years into the future and see a film like Interstellar. Have you seen that?
Yes, I've seen Interstellar.
Yeah, and the robots in that have no effect on their voice. They just sound like people, and the thinking being, well, if you create an artificial intelligence, why would you make it have a weird voice? You'd make the voice as much like a human as possible.
Well, it's like Alexa, isn't it? That, Alexa from Amazon and Siri. Yeah, both thoroughly annoying inventions.
Hold on.
Invented.
Hey Siri, why do you sound like a human being?
I don't know what that means.
Useless.
If you like, I can search the web for why do you sound like a human being?
That there is an illustration of how stupid computers still are. Siri, how many exclamation marks should I give State of Decay?
Here's what I found on the web for how many. Should I give State of Decay?
You see, what she's done is she's misunderstood exclamation mark for me giving some punctuation. So it says, how many exclamation mark should I give State of Decay? Not how many. I can't say decay. I'm saying decay. How many exclamation marks? I'll give it 2.
Well, I've asked Siri to pick a number between 1 and 5, and Siri's come back with 3. Funny
okay.
that. So I'll go with 3. I think
funny because that's dead centre.
That is.
All right, there's State of Decay.
What's the state of the clay? Well, it's just drying now in the kiln.
It's quite moist.
It's quite moist, isn't it, love? Right, well, that's that then. Isn't it time now for you to remind us of the old
the competition?
Competition, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you. The competition we started last week. The prize, the Doctor Who novel, The Dalek Generation by Nicholas Briggs. I'll sign it for you. How's that? Yeah? The question,
magic.
In my first TV Dalek episode, where did Rose Tyler touch the Dalek? The subject line is, elevate. And the closing date is the 28th of September 2018, the day before my birthday. Good luck. Keep them coming in. You stand a good chance.
Rock and roll.
So,
yeah.
what are we going to choose for next time?
Do you know what? I'm not too sure. I've got a variety of options in my mind that we could do.
Pick the middle one.
Well, pick the one to the left. There's one that we once touched on in the Big Finish podcast, and I think we actually have got a lot to say about it. Is the OWL service.
Oh, God.
Because we've got a lot to say about that one.
God, don't make me watch that.
Or alternatively, there's another one that I found which I've not seen before, which looks relatively interesting, and it's called The Siege of Golden Hill.
Oh, that's... why is that?
It's some random kids program about gangs in the 70s. Or we can watch the Jensen Code. I mean, they're the ones that have been floating in my mind.
Wow, I don't know what to choose. I think I'd like to go for the Jensen Code. You're absolutely sure it all exists on...
Yeah, originally made in colour, the Jensen Code now exists only as black and white tele-recordings made for overseas sales, the colour episodes having been junked many years ago.
I would like to watch the Jensen Code.
Yeah, I think the Jensen Code could be a fun one. I think that's a good choice for what we do.
But we'll do the Siege of Golden Hill. I do remember that. We could do that the following week, couldn't we?
We could.
Well, let's go for the Jensen Code. This is Kit Jensen off Radio 1.
Cool. Okay, so the Jensen Code it is.
Right. I suppose it's just time to start talking like this.
To get back in here towards the microphone there, nice and snug. Yes, well, it's been a pleasure as always to discuss cult television with you, Nick.
Oh, thanks,
and
Benji.
indeed a pleasure to hear from our listeners.
Yes, keep writing in to podcast@nicholasbriggs.com.
Please do.
Tom Hodden was given a signed photograph of me for writing in. So, write in, and if you want a signed photograph of me, if you are that discerning, then please do, and I will oblige. I'm off to watch some Gideon's Way. Bye.
Ciao.
Pressing stop now. Ka-chunk.